Welcome back to CIA Declassified. In the autumn of 1953, a document was circulated within the Atomic Energy Commission marked Secret Restricted Data. It wasn't about a new bomb design or a missile silo. It was about the chemical composition of a human child. Between 1945 and the early 60s, the atmosphere of our planet was being rewritten. Every time a dirty weapon was detonated in Nevada or the Marshall Islands, a microscopic signature was etched into the environment. Most of the world saw the flash. A few men in Washington saw the ledger. Welcome to CIA Declassifies. Today we're performing a forensic autopsy on Project Sunshine. This is a 100% nonfiction account based on the 1995 Presidential Advisory Committee on Human Radiation Experiments and the Declassified RAND report R251AEC. This isn't just a story of radiation, it's a story of logistics. It's the story of how the CIA and the AEC created a global supply chain for human remains, treating the world's morgues like a supermarket for isotopes. We're going to look at the quotes they thought would stay buried and the redacted black bars that still hide the darkest corners of the atomic age. To understand the horror of Project Sunshine, you have to understand strontium-90. In the early 50s, the scientific community realized that fallout wasn't just dust, it was a biological mimic. This is a quote from a technical memo AEC report. Strontium-90 is a bone seeker. Its chemical behavior is nearly identical to calcium. When ingested through the food chain, specifically milk, it doesn't pass through the body. It migrates to the skeletal matrix. It becomes part of you, end quote. The government had a terrifying question. How much of this can a human take before the bone marrow fails, before the leukemia starts? To measure this, they invented a new unit of measurement. They didn't call it a death unit or a radiation marker. They called it a sunshine unit. One sunshine unit was 1 microcurie of strontium-90 per gram of calcium in the bone. But to calibrate this scale, they needed a baseline. They needed to see how much strontium was already in the bones of people who had just died. But not just any people. They needed the cleanest data. They needed infants. A quote from Dr. Willard Libby, Project Sunshine Conference, 1953. The samples we need are from the young. Their bones are forming. They are absorbing the environment at a higher rate. I don't know how to get them, but I do say that it is a matter of prime importance. If anybody knows how to do a good job of body snatching, they will really be serving their country, end quote. Body snatching. A Nobel Prize winner in a room full of the nation's top scientists used that exact phrase. He wasn't joking. He was giving an order. The CIA and the AEC realized quickly that U.S. citizens might ask questions if their babies' remains started disappearing from hospitals. To solve this, they went global. They leveraged the CIA's international stations to find compliant medical environments where oversight was thin. A quote from a declassified memo. Arrangements have been made with various foreign stations. We are looking for whole bodies where possible. The cost of shipment is to be absorbed by the Project Sunshine budget under biological supplies, end quote. One of the most active harvesting sites was Australia. In 2001, a Senate inquiry in Australia finally blew the lid off what happened in hospitals in Melbourne. Imagine being Jean Walker. In 1960, she gave birth to a stillborn daughter. She mourned, she buried her child, and she moved on. Decades later, she discovered through declassified records that her daughter's legs had been surgically removed by hospital staff before the funeral. They were packed into a lead-lined suitcase and flown to Chicago. A quote from Jean Walker, her 2001 testimony. They didn't just take a sample, they took her limbs. They replaced them with wooden sticks so I wouldn't feel the weight change in the casket. They treated my baby like a piece of equipment, end quote. This happened thousands of times. The bone hunters would identify a deceased child, perform a necessary autopsy, and then ship the femurs, the ribs, and sometimes the entire skull to the University of Chicago or the AEC's Health and Safety Laboratory in New York. If you look at the declassified Project Sunshine files today, you will see massive sections of black ink. Why? If the program ended in the 60s, why is it still redacted? As an investigator, you learn to look at where the redactions are. They aren't in the science, they are in the methods of acquisition. So this part is speculation. There are three main areas of redaction that suggest a deeper level of CIA involvement. The diplomatic pouch logs. Large sections of the logistics files are missing. It is highly probable that the bones were moved using diplomatic pouches, containers that are immune to customs inspections. This would mean the CIA was actively smuggling human remains across borders, a violation of almost every international treaty. 2. The financials. There are redacted lines next to the names of foreign doctors. These were likely consultation fees or, in plain English, bribes. The CIA wasn't just asking for help, they were paying doctors to violate the ethics of their own countries. The living samples mystery. That's 3. Most of Sunshine focused on the dead, but there are references to, quote, Project Gabriel, end quote, a sister program. The redactions here are thick. There's a strong evidence that some samples were taken from living patients, specifically orphans and the mentally ill, to see how strontium moved through a living system in real time. The black bars aren't protecting national security, they are protecting the reputations of prestigious medical institutions and the families of the men who authorized the body snatching. By the late 1950s, the Sunshine data showed something horrifying. The levels of strontium-90 in the bones of children worldwide were rising exponentially. The Sunshine unit was moving toward the threshold of concern. The government didn't use this data to stop the bombs. They used it to plan for the post-attack environment. They wanted to know how many people would die of bone cancer after a nuclear exchange so they could calculate the viability of a surviving workforce. A quote from Dr. Willard Libby: "Human samples are the only way to be sure. We are building a map of the future of the species." End quote. In 1963, the Limited Test Ban Treaty was signed, moving nuclear tests underground. The harvest officially slowed down, but the data lived on. Every time you hear a statistic about the allowable limit of radiation in your food or water, you are hearing the echoes of Project Sunshine. Those limits were calculated using the stolen bones of children who never had a name. We have seen the CIA harvest the dead. We have seen them monitor the clouds. But what happens when they decide to harvest the mind? Next time on CIA Declassified, we move from the morgue to the classroom. We're diving into Project Resistance. While the world was focused on the hippie movement and the anti-war protest of the 1960s, the CIA Domestic Operations Division was running a 100% non-fiction clandestine program on American college campuses. But this wasn't just about spying. We have obtained the declassified memos detailing the protester profiles. Project Resistance was an attempt to create a predictive behavioral model for rebellion. The CIA worked with university administrators to identify troublemakers and use psychological stressors to see how far a student could be pushed before they broke or turned into an informant. It's a story of campus security turned into behavioral modification. It's the CIA's secret war against the American student. The syllabus is classified. The final exam is a polygraph. Join us next time for Project Resistance. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.